welcome to my channel, your go-to destination for all things educational. Thank you for tuning in. I am Lana, the educator. If you're interested in all things educational, like and subscribe. If you're a student striving for success, a dedicated teacher shaping young minds, or a power professional making a difference, or even an administrator leading the way, this channel is your inspiration for insights and invaluable resources. If you're a first-time listener on this channel, welcome, and join me as I explore the latest educational trends, tackle pressing issues facing the education sector, and share stories of triumph and innovation across the globe. Today, we have a treat. My guest for the episode is so inspiring to me in so many ways. So I was very excited when he agreed to join us and do this special episode. So I have with me today Arthur Carr, author of the book, So You Want to Be a Police Officer. Congratulations on your book, Arthur, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so let me tell you about this amazing author. All right, he is a serving police officer with almost a decade of policing experience in various departments within the TTPS, that's the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. He has experience in areas of conservation and hazardous waste disposal and handling, having spent 1 year at the prestigious Acerite Center, Nature Center, and 4 years as an environmental scientist at Green Engineering. Arthur has also spent 1 year as a primary school teacher, which, we're going to get into that. So he has some knowledge of the education sector in Trinidad and Tobago. He holds bachelor's degrees in environmental and natural resource management with a minor in sports nutrition from the University of the West Indies, as well as bachelor's in criminology and public safety from the University of Trinidad and Tobago. He also has master's degrees in environmental science and management from UTT and has attained numerous other certificates over the years. Not to mention, Arthur Carr is also a published author of the book entitled So You Want to Be a Police Officer. He is a husband, a father, and I'm proud to call him my friend. So please welcome to the channel, Arthur Carr. Did I cover everything?
Yeah, I think you did. Thanks again for that wonderful intro.
Yes, we have to hype up. We have to hype up the police officers, the authors out here. But what stood out to me, that's a very interesting and varied professional bio, right? How did you get from teacher to police officer to writer?
Sometimes I ask myself the same question. So basically, life really has its twists and turns. And my intention initially, as most young persons, going through the flow of schooling, you complete your A-levels and going on to university.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I decided environmental seemed like the career to get into, and I started pursuing that career. And as time went on, I just ended up in a situation at work where I decided, I think I should leave this profession.
Mm.
And it just so happened there was an ad for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. They were having a recruitment that year, and I threw my name in the ring, and essentially within 5 months I was recruited into the police service. Yeah, I guess in between that the teaching came about.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of young persons go through that phase in life where looking for a profession, and the teaching service actually is one where persons see as, hey, maybe let me try my hand here. And so I got into the teaching, and I must say I did enjoy it.
Nice.
It is seriously, it's one of the decisions to this day I wonder if I made the right decision to leave, because of what it gave me in terms of just sheer feeling of fulfillment at the end of each day, as if you really did something, you contributed, to society. But luckily, I landed in a career that gives that sort of fulfillment as well, being a police officer, serving persons. So at least I fell, in a similar nest.
Right. And I like that you use the word serving, because teaching and being in the police service is really a service kind of professions that you offer this kind of servant leadership to the public and to the community. So, it's very necessary. So,
Definitely.
did you see yourself as being an author? How did that come about? Is that something you wanted for yourself?
Well, that actually was a bit random. Well, maybe I'm selling myself short a bit by saying random, but it really came about through a lot of conversations at work. A lot of times we talk about things amongst our colleagues, and we make those little jokes and say, I should write that down. And it really stemmed from that sort of interactions. And essentially, I just put pen to paper and I started writing things into a diary that I kept back in, I guess that's around 2014 or 15.
Wow.
Yeah, it was way back. And I just was jotting things down, from conversations with persons who were in the service longer than I. And, eventually these things turned into paragraphs, and paragraphs turned into chapters. And before you knew it, I shouldn't even say before you knew it took a while actually, but eventually I came out with a book, and I decided, I should take it all the way and publish it.
Right, excellent. So I have the book here. It's always by my bookshelf, right? I don't know. I'm so proud. Like, I'm a fan. People becomes fan of these celebrities and these actors. I'm fan of writers, so I search them out. So it's right here because I can say I personally know this author, and it's signed and everything. It's signed and everything, right? And this is the reason I invited you here this evening. When I started this podcast, when I tell you, it was with you in mind. I said first episode should be Arthur. I want him to come and talk about this. I'm so excited about this book for him here. So I find it's very fitting that you are my first episode per se in the season 2, where I get to share, the amazing thing that you've done. So you want to be a police officer. Congratulations again, by the way, on the book. So tell us about the book. Give the readers a brief overview.
Well, the book is essentially, the name sort of, gives a clue as to what it's about. So it gets at the heart of how persons think about that decision to become a police officer. And it really gets into what happens within the service and what you should prepare for. So it starts from when one even thinks about getting a profession. So, in your youth, you may think, all right, having a tattoo on my face is a great decision. But the reality is it may cause you to be, not allowed into the service because of that decision in your youth. So it's really starting from that moment when you start thinking, all right, I'm becoming an adult. What sort of career I could look at? Maybe the police career is something that I should choose. And then from the time you make that decision and you enter into recruitment, I give some intimate details of what you experience within the recruitment phase and training phase. And I work from there through your initial years in the service and through the ranks and the promotion process. So it's really, I dissect the whole career, essentially, of someone who is deciding to be a police officer. And I really place it in such a way that it's an easy read for anyone who's thinking about it. And also, it gives persons who don't even care to become police officers, but it gives them an insight as to what police officers face and why they may react the way they do or interact the way they do with the public. So that's really what the book is about, really to sort of deal with some misconceptions that may be out there about the police service and just clear those things up. And an easy read. I didn't want it to be too long-winded. And, I just wanted to make sure that everyone could pick it up, especially young persons, and have a read.
So why this particular approach to policing? I'm guessing there are many aspects to policing and the experience of policing, but why this particular subject matter in terms of speaking to the public in terms of wanting to be a police officer and not something else, maybe the stress or mental health for police service? Why this particular approach to writing the book?
So I think I needed to place the service in a different light. I think within recent times, persons have this view of the service as if they're incompetent. There are persons just bandying around out there thinking that police officers are just not intelligent enough to really understand or grapple with the crime situation. And so I wanted to really let persons realize exactly how this whole thing works, how complex the situation is. So instead of just looking at things at the surface and believing, okay, all right, anyone who's in the service, they have a particular standard or whatever, it really allows you now to take a step back and watch exactly what the service is, what the expectations should be. And it allows persons who are within the service to look at themselves. If they take a read of this book, they will look at themselves and realize what their purpose really is, as police officers. So a lot of persons may think that they're just there to just simply arrest persons, just be on this rampage, an arresting rampage. And it really makes you think now that, all right, perhaps there are different approaches, and communication is one of the main things that we can use to really ease some of the stresses that we face here as police officers. So that was really the reason behind how I wrote the book, to really place some light on the service. I think there's so much negativity surrounding the service that it was something that was needed.
Right. Yes. Because I was going to touch on that a little bit later, because when I saw the book and I said, okay, Arthur, a lot of people don't see police officers and the police service in a positive light. So I think you kind of answered that particular question in terms of how and why people need to perceive police and the police service in a different aspect. Another comment I want to make as well is, typically, I'm a reader, but many people may not pick up a book like this. It really draws your attention, so you want to be a police officer in terms of tone, because we might say, no, I don't want to be a police officer, but you're still curious, because I really don't think there's any book out there like this in Trinidad and Tobago. I read a lot of local books, and I don't think there is a book that really encapsulates in such a palatable manner what goes on inside the police service. So now that you're an author, what are your views or what is your approach now to books now that you're an author of a book? What is your views on do you see books in a different light, is what I should basically be asking. Do you see books in a different light now that you're an author?
So, to be honest, I have always loved reading certain types of books. So I'm a believer in those self-improvement type books, business books, these sort of things, understanding yourself, those sort of empowerment type books, and also historical text as well. Love history. So if I could sit down and read history, but the only problem now as I have become an adult is time.
Yes.
So time, time is the biggest problem. But having written this particular book, I decided that, hey, I've been able to publish this first one. There's no reason for me to sit and not write another. And with me becoming a father within the last 3 years or 4 years now, going on 4 years, I recognized as well almost a desire to write something for my boys.
Nice.
Because my two sons. And there's something that has been bothering me for many years. there's particular things as a black man that I may face that others may not. And I felt as though with how this society is, the crime situation, let's be honest with ourselves. There are a particular sector of persons who are involved in a lot of crime in Trinidad and Tobago. And, having written this book on policing, I wanted to do something that really gets at the core of some of these issues as well. And with me having 2 boys, I felt it was my responsibility to write something. And I started working on a second book. And so having written the first book, of course, it really has, showed me that I should continue this and get the message out. So my perception really has, I guess, developed having written the book. Not really changed, because I think I always had a love for books and stuff, but so I think that has been the real change. I'm now trying to complete a second book, that delves into those issues of what young men should be expecting, as they move from childhood to adulthood.
Right, which brings me to my next question. Police officer, do you think a police officer is a popular choice for young persons? What's your opinion on that as a career?
The recruitment drives that have been taking place in recent years are proof that the career remains something that persons want to get into. I think perhaps sometimes for the wrong reasons. And I think it is a bit hinged on perhaps that need for power. So for instance, I think men in particular, they really, they desire power. And what better career than the career of a policeman to display the most amount of power that you can ever dream of? A police officer really wields a lot of power that a lot of persons may take for granted. And it's so important that when you make that decision, you're going in for the right reason. So despite whatever, we're going to always have persons who are going to just seek that power, and so they're going to pursue a career like this.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's the majority, but I'm just saying there are going to be persons. So there's always an attraction to the career. And of course, in Trinidad, in the local parlance, we always talk about serviceman this and serviceman that. So you're going to have those persons who are going to pursue the career for those reasons.
Yes.
So I think it's, and again, with the unemployment situation, it's also a job that gives so much security. Let's look at the recently, I don't want to say concluded, but you know what I mean, the COVID situation a few years ago. You had so many persons being laid off. And when we had that situation of separating those who were essential and those who were not, we recognized the careers that held up against most of the issues that we were facing in society. And the policing career was one of those. It really seemed as though it was an unshakable sort of career to be within. So I think because of all those reasons combined, a lot of persons will continue to turn to the police career, as a main option.
Yes. So you touched on something before, which of course comes to my mind in terms of power and authority. How do you strike that balance of authority and understanding, especially when dealing with youth as a police officer? How do you strike that right balance?
I think the first thing that one must understand is what is the real reason we are doing what we are doing? Is it really to really just, as I said before, just arrest persons? Or is it to solve an issue that is occurring within society? Is it to help persons? Because our motto is to protect and serve.
Right.
So the first thing a person must look at is what the motto says. And if we are to protect persons, there are so many options one could take if they are looking to protect persons. sometimes persons need protection from themselves. There are times where persons, the only reason that they're doing what they're doing is because they're perhaps trying to feed a family of 9.
Yeah.
And, their options are limited. There are times where we as individuals look at things from just a shallow place in terms of we are so sometimes in our own bubble and believe that everyone else is going through the same thing that we are going through. And the reality is the person's circumstances around you may be absolutely different. And it's the reason why they act the way they do. And so once officers remain within that mindset, it becomes a little more easier to really look at persons and not be quick to bring down the axe, as they say, on every single person. And we see it today when we have so many persons coming out against police officers and saying that the police officers are just looking to make our money and this and that. They're just giving everybody tickets. And we, as much as that may be the situation that persons believe is happening, we as police officers must recognize that these persons are saying these things because they believe there's some truth to it. That for whatever reason, they believe that we are coming down too hard on them. And it's because they believe that there's a separation there, that police officers can't possibly live in the same situations that they are living in. And so it's really trying to remember that, one, you have a job, and the law dictates what it is you have to do.
Yes.
So you must always keep in mind that it's the law that you're following, and it's not a personal thing. And then you must continue to communicate to the public that, get yourself accrual with what the laws are. And so persons would then start to not take things as personally as they do. And then the other thing is, persons who are within the police have to do some introspection and really ask themselves, are they speaking to persons the way that they expect to be spoken to if they are on the other side? So imagine an 18-year-old being a police officer and stopping you at a roadblock and speaking to you and say, hey, give me this.
Yeah.
Imagine how you feel as an individual. You are an educator, being an educator at a prestigious secondary school. And an officer who perhaps just graduated from a school, from your school,
right,
and is now speaking to you with utter disdain. And these are the things that officers must really think about when they speak to persons. And it's not just that, all right, I must show that I'm the one with the power here. But it must be a humility, that must be exuded from them, that allows them to take some hits on the chin and just roll with it. And eventually, even if it takes a little longer, eventually everything will basically just smooth out and things will work out. So I think that's how I think of things.
Yeah.
And that's how I navigate, being a police officer, and then of course how I communicate with persons and interact.
Okay. So how do you feel your background in education helps you in your current role as a police officer? Does that come into play at any point?
I had the unfortunate experience, one or two experiences of seeing one of my former, he wasn't my direct student, but he was one of the students at the school I taught in Belmont.
Okay.
And I remember him coming into the station, and immediately I just was sort of overwhelmed with, oh my gosh, this is a child that I knew from when I was teaching. And to see him now in handcuffs, that sort of, there's always been a level of compassion from my side of things because of that sort of experience that I had, seeing someone who I knew as a child and now seeing him in that criminal world, you know, those are the things that keep me grounded,
Right.
you know, and I really realize that, you know, a lot of persons, it, it can go so wayward for anybody, really
Yes.
and truly, you
Yes.
know, and yeah, their experiences I've had where persons are, they are definitely not criminals,
Mm.
and they've been caught up in certain random situations, and now they're behind bars,
Mm.
you know, and you can tell the level of embarrassment and hurt that this person is experiencing, you know, and I think those are the things that have really allowed me to, you know, look at policing in a different light.
Okay. Hello, my loyal listeners. Thank you for your support thus far. Please tune in and look at the first 10 episodes of Lana the Educator's Teachers Have Issues, Yes. Please join us for the second part of the interview with Arthur Carr, author of So You Want to Be a Police Officer. Check the video here or in the descriptions.